So this video today probably will lose me some Twitter friends. Maybe some industry people won't like me after what I have to say today. But I don't really care. It's nothing personal. It's just about your work. And if you take it personally, then you probably need to look in the mirror and see why you're taking it personally. But Xbox has really had a tumultuous 2 weeks. And then yesterday we got this presentation, and everything was pretty much what we initially expected. Back in January, of course, we were talking about smaller Xbox titles coming to other platforms. Games like Sea of Thieves, that's obviously probably reached a player cap on the Xbox. Games like, of course, Hi-Fi Rush, something that, it's not really a flagship Microsoft title. It was just a game that a lot of people enjoyed because it was a high quality game. And everyone was okay with that. Nobody really cared. They're like, oh, that's cool. They've done stuff like Ori on other platforms. Sony has MLB The Show on other platforms. It's just kind of the way that some of these companies are looking to extend revenue and get additional revenue from other platforms. But then 2 Sundays ago, the sky fell out and the stars were showing, because all of a sudden, all of these places started reporting that Starfield, the big flagship title for Xbox in 2023, was going to be coming to the PlayStation 5. But beyond that, Starfield was coming out this year for the PlayStation 5, coinciding with the launch of new Starfield DLC. But beyond that, Starfield was also, these companies, Microsoft was actually getting more PS5 dev kits to work on stuff like Starfield. And then it started this snowball effect. It started this snowball effect of a lack of accountability. There is no accountability in video games journalism anymore. Nobody can bear to say, you know what? I screwed this up. I was wrong about it. What do? They double down. They say, oh, things must have changed. It was a plausible thing. There were discussions about it. Because after we learned about Starfield, we then started hearing about Gears of War and Indiana Jones. What the hell do you expect people to think when reputable gaming journalists and reputable gaming websites are the ones providing this information? They're the ones providing this stuff out into the open and saying that, oh, this is a real possibility. So then people start talking about it because, of course, it's an interesting topic. I made videos on the potential of games like Starfield, games like Gears of War, games like Indiana Jones coming out on other platforms. But why did I make those videos? Because you have faith in these industry people, in these journalists who go to all these events, who schmoz with the VPs of these companies, who hang out with them, who break bread with them. You assume that these people know what the hell they're talking about. But do they? Do they actually? Or is this just flinging crap on the wall? And then if something sticks, then you take your victory lap. And if it doesn't stick, you say, oh, plans must have changed. I am sorry. But there is no way in less than 2 weeks, Microsoft completely shifted their business model of bringing all of these major high caliber games to other platforms because Twitter was upset about it. Twitter is not a real place. Twitter is not real life. Twitter makes up a very small incremental amount of real people. It's just that you have these idiots on Twitter who have these loud voices for some reason, and people just latch on to them. And they're like, yeah, you speak for me. Even though in the real world, you go up to someone and you talk about Twitter, they'll probably say, get out of my face with your musty breath. Like, I don't get it. And the only person who had any accountability leading up to this Xbox presentation was Nate the Hate. When he said, hey, you know what? I've kind of heard that maybe this Starfield stuff was wrong. And what happened? Were people like, oh, thanks, Nate. Thanks for being honest about this. Thanks for clearing things up. No, people attacked him. People said he's a flip-flopper. Journalists from these websites that reported that Starfield was coming and Indiana Jones was coming and Gears of War were coming, they attacked him. But he was right. Where's the apology for Nate? Where is the discerning look towards these gaming journalists all of a sudden? So what they double down. They're like, oh, well, Phil said that maybe in 5 to 10. Shut up. 5 to 10 years. Nobody cares about 5 to 10 years. In 5 to 10 years, video game consoles, aside from Nintendo, could be completely different. And that's meaning both PlayStation and Xbox. When you look at what we've learned about PlayStation thus far this year and what's happening within their business model, things can drastically change. But there's no proof of that change happening in the intermittent. I don't understand. I don't understand why there's no accountability for these gaming journalists, and why we still give these people platforms, and why we still listen to some of these people with their insider information when it's tragically wrong. And I say tragically because this, of course, started a ripple effect that, I was caught up in it. I was caught up in talking about all of this Xbox stuff, but it goes beyond just people like me. My editor, who hasn't edited anything in a very long time, but he's still getting paid, so I need to put him to work at some point in time. But Brett sent me TikToks with millions and millions of views of people, of these younger individuals saying, oh, Halo's coming to PlayStation 5. Get ready for Halo on PlayStation 5. Xbox is going multi-platform. They're getting out of the console thing. When you watch that Xbox presentation, pretend like the Starfield stuff never happened. Pretend like nobody said anything about Gears of War. Pretend that nobody said anything about Indiana Jones. Pretend that none of that happened. And we're right back to where we were in January when things made sense. When it was like, hey, you know what? Some smaller games from Xbox are probably going to go to other platforms, like they have been for a while now. It's not big flagship IPs, but hey, Sea of Thieves, that makes sense. Look at the games that we learned about that were the 4 games, because those games ended up being confirmed by Famitsu and other places. Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, and Pentiment. Those are the 4 games. You could combine those 4 games in terms of impact, and they're not as big as Starfield. They're not as big as Gears of War. They're not as big as Indiana Jones. That's just on their own. When you combine Indiana Jones, Gears of War, and Starfield, that's just a huge, monstrous beast. It completely changed the narrative. And I was going on podcasts and I was making videos on this channel after I learned about some of these things and really thought about it and started looking into stuff and talking to people. And I was like, wait, this isn't going to be a big deal. This presentation has been overhyped. They're not going third party. We learned about new hardware coming from Xbox. We already know about it because it was in the Microsoft Activision Blizzard leaks with all those court documents. We already know that they're doing new hardware, but they had to come out and say, yeah, we're doing new hardware. They had to come out and say, no, Starfield and Indiana Jones are not going third party. There's just some smaller games. And why is that? Because of the hoopla, the nonsense, and the bullshit started up by these quote-unquote gaming journalists. Some of them wearing the Xbox brand, some of them just being a part of the conversation, and it's ridiculous. The fact that there's absolutely no accountability for these people, and it's just business as usual the next day, and nobody cares about it. Nobody's looking at it. I'm not saying attack these people, but just stop rocking with them. If they're constantly wrong about major things, why would they get minor things correct? And the absolute fact that Nate the Hate was the only one who had the balls to come out and say, hey, you know what? I don't think Starfield's happening. I think that information, it wasn't good information. And for him to be attacked and ridiculed and people questioning his integrity, but they're not questioning the integrity of all these other jackasses who came out with this stuff that was inherently, massively wrong, just shows you how crazy this is. It shows you where people's loyalties lie. People don't want to hear the truth. People don't want to hear the actual things. They want these grandiose things. They want these massive things because they're embedded and embroiled in some console war. Some of these people are 50, 60 years old, involved in a console war. Game? And you know what? Games journalism fuels this. They fuel this mindset. They fuel this nonsense. There needs to be accountability. If I'm wrong about something, hey, you know what, guys? I'm wrong. I'm sorry. You don't want to believe me anymore? That's fine. But I do feel like I know what I'm talking about at least some of the time. And if I don't, hey, I probably won't talk about it. Hold these journalists to a higher standard. This is why mainstream media is in shambles. And this is why people are starting to turn their back on mainstream media, because they plant these narratives and they give this incorrect information. But people don't look into things. They just believe everything that is said. And then when these people are wrong, they just move on. It's business as usual. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I'm heated up over this. And like I said, I'm going to lose some friends over this. I'm going to lose some colleagues and stuff like that. I don't care. If you got a problem with what I say, that's your problem. That ain't my problem. And you know what? You want to unfollow me? You want to unsubscribe from the channel? Be my guest. Because I would rather keep it real, and I would rather be honest than be a fraud, than to talk out my ass, than to perpetuate false information constantly. How about that Nintendo Direct, people? Let me know what you think of this in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for watching this video. Give props to Nate the Hate. He was the only one who had balls to come out and buck against the grain as far as insiders are concerned. And what happened to him? They tried to crucify the guy. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. And as always, subscribe if you're new. Unsubscribe if you hate me. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.